The evening fell off as soon as I stepped through the door. There was an unsettling tension in the air, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Emily was sitting on the couch, her eyes glued to her phone, but the warmth that usually radiated from her seemed to have vanished. "Hey, is everything okay?" I asked, setting my bag down and hoping for a reassuring smile. Instead, she glanced up, her gaze quickly darting back to the screen. "Yeah, everything's fine," she replied, but the way she avoided eye contact only deepened my unease. I decided to brush it off for the moment, thinking perhaps she was just having a long day. We settled in to watch TV, but the familiar comfort of our time together felt strained. It was as if a small crack had appeared in the foundation of our relationship, one that was slowly widening with each passing moment. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously amiss. The following day, my childhood friend Ryan sent me a text that sent my heart plummeting. Attached was a screenshot of an Instagram post featuring Emily at a party, looking carefree and happy. But it was the man standing too close to her, his hand almost resting on her waist, that made my stomach churn. I didn't recognize him, but the caption was what cut me the deepest. Emily and Ryan, always a blast when the two of them are together. My mind raced. Who was this guy? And why had Emily never mentioned him? The knot in my stomach tightened as I recalled how, not long ago, Emily's insecurities had begun to surface. I had always reassured her, but now I couldn't help but feel the sting of betrayal. When I got home, I knew I had to ask her about it. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my tone even. "Emily, who's Ryan?" Her reaction was immediate. She froze, the color draining from her face. "What do you mean?" she stammered, her eyes wide with panic. I held out my phone, showing her the post. "The guy in the Instagram photo with you. Why didn't you mention him?" She sat down on the couch, her hands trembling, and said, "It's not what you think. Ryan's just a friend. We've known each other for a while, but it's nothing more than that." But her flushed face and shaky voice told a different story. "Then why didn't you tell me about him? Why was he all over you in that photo? And why didn't you mention anything about the party?" My voice was steady, but inside, I was seething with confusion and hurt. Emily's eyes filled with tears as she looked down, unable to meet my gaze. "I didn't think it was important," she admitted quietly. "I didn't want to upset you. I know you don't like when I go out without you, and I didn't want you to think anything was going on with Ryan. But you know I trust you," I said, my heart aching at the realization that she felt the need to hide things from me. "So why didn't you just tell me the truth?" Her face crumpled as she let out a shaky breath. "Because I'm scared, okay?" she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm scared that one day you'll realize you don't need me, that I'm just holding you back from something better. You don't need a girl like me." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. This wasn't just about a photo or a party. It was about her deep-rooted fears and insecurities that she had never fully shared with me. My heart broke as I realized how alone she must have felt in her doubts. "Emily, you're not holding me back. I love you. I've always loved you," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "But you need to stop pushing me away with these fears. You need to trust me." She looked up at me, her face streaked with tears. "I do trust you, but sometimes I feel like I'm not enough. I feel like I'm not the kind of person you deserve." I sat there, speechless, grappling with the weight of her words. I wanted to reassure her, to tell her that I would never leave her, but I also felt a surge of anger that her insecurities were driving a wedge between us, anger that she had hidden things from me, and most of all, anger that I had allowed her to feel so alone. "Emily," I said softly, taking her hand in mine, "we need to talk about this more. But we also need to stop letting these fears control us. If we're going to be together, we have to trust each other completely." She nodded, wiping her tears. "I know. I'm sorry. I don't know how to stop feeling this way." We spent hours talking, really talking, for the first time in what felt like ages. We delved into our feelings, peeling back layers that had built up over time. It wasn't easy. There were moments when I felt like giving up, like walking away from all the pain that had accumulated. But I knew we had something worth fighting for. I could see it in her eyes, the same love and tenderness that had brought us together all those years ago. After that night, things shifted slightly. We both made an effort to communicate more openly, to confront the fears and insecurities that had lingered for so long. Yet, despite our best intentions, we never fully recovered. The cracks in our relationship remained, always subtly present, even when we tried to ignore them. I began to feel suffocated by her constant need for reassurance, while she felt I was becoming distant and unresponsive to her emotional needs. Then one day, it happened, a big fight, one of those explosive arguments where everything we had been holding in came pouring out. Words were exchanged, and actions were taken that we could never take back. In the aftermath, we both understood that we had reached an impasse. We loved each other, but love alone wasn't enough to mend what was broken. The trust that once connected us had been shaken, and our bond felt strained beyond repair. I walked away from Emily that day, and it felt like my heart was being ripped from my chest. Yet, deep down, I knew it was for the best. The hardest part wasn't the fight itself, but the realization that we had poured so much of ourselves into a relationship built on fragile ground. Despite our love and our efforts, we couldn't bridge the divide that had formed between us, and it was painful to accept that sometimes love isn't enough. In the months that followed the tumultuous events of my life, I found myself immersed in deep reflection. It was a period marked by introspection, where I unraveled the complexities of my experiences, particularly regarding love and trust. I learned a great deal about myself through the pain and heartache that had unfolded. Coming to terms with the reality that relationships can sometimes disintegrate, no matter how much effort you invest, was a difficult lesson. Yet, I began to realize that these painful endings could pave the way for new beginnings, ones that might ultimately lead to growth and healing. That afternoon, a text message from Emily arrived, and with it came a sense of dread. The message simply read, "We need to talk." Those 4 words struck me like a bolt of lightning, sending an icy chill down my spine. The gravity of her message weighed heavily on my chest, making it impossible to concentrate on anything else for the remainder of the day. My mind raced with endless possibilities, each more terrifying than the last. Was she upset with me? Had something happened to her or her family? The dread swirled within me, an unwelcome companion that refused to let go. Despite my urge to reach out to her, to seek clarity, I held back, knowing that probing could only make matters worse. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, yet the ominous nature of her words left me feeling like a storm was brewing. "We need to talk" was not just a casual conversation starter. It felt like the harbinger of something life-altering. By the time I returned home, the atmosphere felt altered and thick with anticipation. The house, which had once been a sanctuary, felt cold and suffocating, as if it were holding its breath along with me. I found Emily sitting on the couch, her posture slumped, which tugged at my heartstrings. Her eyes were red and puffy, streaked with tears that spoke volumes about the turmoil she had been grappling with. The sight of her in such distress only amplified my anxiety, each heartbeat echoing the fear that something profound was wrong. As I approached her, a rush of instinct compelled me to offer comfort, but my own heart was racing, making it hard to think clearly. "Emily, what's wrong?" My voice quivered with concern as I placed a tentative hand on her shoulder, attempting to convey reassurance that I didn't truly feel. When she looked up at me, her gaze was a mixture of guilt and pain, an expression that sent a jolt of fear through me. "I messed up," she whispered, her voice barely above a murmur, as if the weight of her confession was almost too much to bear. At that moment, I froze, my mind racing to grasp the gravity of her words. What could she possibly mean? "What do you mean?" I asked, my stomach sinking, bracing itself for the inevitable catastrophe. Emily drew a deep breath, visibly gathering her thoughts, as though she were preparing to share a secret she had harbored for far too long. Then, in a single, shattering breath, she revealed the truth that would fracture my world. I hooked up with my ex. Time seemed to stand still as I struggled to process her admission. The room felt like it was tilting, and I found myself reeling from the impact of her betrayal. "What?" I managed to choke out, my voice strained, as if I were grappling with a physical blow. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut, leaving me feeling insecure and bewildered. "I've always felt like you were out of my league," she confessed, her voice trembling. "I convinced myself that you must have cheated on me at least once, and I guess I wanted to even the playing field." The phrase, "even the playing field," ricocheted in my mind, embedding itself like a splinter I couldn't remove. It was more than just a momentary lapse in judgment. It felt like a calculated decision, driven by her insecurities that had distorted her view of our relationship. In that moment, disbelief washed over me. All the efforts I had made to reassure her of my love and commitment now felt futile. I had gone out of my way to demonstrate my loyalty, yet her insecurities had driven her to betray me. Anger surged within me, a fiery tide that threatened to consume my reason. How could she think that this betrayal would somehow level the playing field? How could she harbor such misguided assumptions about our relationship? "I need a moment," I said, my voice tight, struggling to contain the flood of emotions that threatened to overwhelm me. Without waiting for her response, I turned and walked out of the house, unable to bear the sight of her, not when I felt so shattered. I got into my car and drove aimlessly, the world outside my window blurring into a haze as my thoughts replayed Emily's confession on a relentless loop. I kept asking myself the same question. Why? Why had she done this? How had we reached such a devastating point? I had believed we were happy, at least I thought I was. But now everything felt like a lie. As the hours dragged on, I finally returned home, but nothing had changed. The air in the house felt thick, oppressive. Emily was still there, her expression one of concern and desperation, as though she was trying to bridge the chasm that had opened between us. When I walked in, she stood up, her eyes pleading for understanding, and she even attempted to kiss me, as if everything could return to normal with a simple gesture. I recoiled, my heart breaking all over again. "I'm staying at a friend's place for a few days," I stated flatly, my voice devoid of warmth. I couldn't look at her without seeing the betrayal reflected in her eyes. She nodded, her face crumpling as tears welled up once more. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, but her words felt hollow in that moment. Sorry couldn't undo the damage. It couldn't erase the fact that she had shattered everything we had built together. Silence engulfed us, as I left without another word, needing to distance myself from the person I had once loved so deeply. The trust we had nurtured over the years lay in ruins, obliterated by a single, careless act. I didn't know if it could ever be rebuilt. Now, sitting in my friend's house, I found myself wrestling with the chaos in my mind. The memories of our good times, the laughter, the promises we had made, all replayed like a haunting melody. Was it all a facade? Did she truly love me? Or was she too consumed by her own fears to appreciate what we had? A part of me yearned to forgive her. I had always believed in second chances and the possibility of moving forward after mistakes. Yet, the louder, angrier part of me felt that this was a betrayal too deep to overcome. How does one forgive someone for destroying the very foundation of their relationship? I couldn't shake the feeling that I had missed signs along the way, that I could have done something differently to reassure her, to be more patient. But the truth remained. I had given her everything. I loved her, supported her, remained loyal and honest, and yet, despite all that, she chose to betray me, driven by her own insecurities and misguided beliefs. Now, the future loomed before me, shrouded in uncertainty. I didn't know if I would ever be able to trust her again, or if I even wanted to. I questioned whether she deserved forgiveness, or if she even sought it. All I knew was that I needed to carve out some clarity amid the chaos. Trust, once broken, is nearly impossible to rebuild, and I wasn't sure if I was willing or even capable of trying. Perhaps time would offer the healing I desperately sought, and distance would provide the perspective I needed to make a decision. For now, all I could do was breathe and hold on to the hope that I would find the strength to confront whatever lay ahead. My life had irrevocably changed, and now I needed to navigate the path forward, wherever it might lead.